I am on day 6. I went camping for Mother's Day and I did some knitting, not a lot though. But I've been knitting off stream for the Stockinette logo blanket. My husband's still helping me design like the logo portion to properly proportion it into the blanket. So we're just starting on the easier portion of the blanket. I'm just doing a garter ridge. You can't see very well because it is a black blanket. And then the stockinette. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. I am almost done my first skein of yarn. I have decent amount of length. I'm knitting about 6 rows per hour. I'm on row 49 and this portion of it is going decently quick. So let's get started on just knitting. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to edit my temperature blanket and then I'm going to this week get caught up for May. All right. Let's just dive into knitting. Let's just get this done. It's a lengthy project. It's going to be 700 rows. So it's going to be a very lengthy project. I've already worked on, so for 48 rows, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5, and that's just knitting. I've already put in 8.5 hours for 48 rows, and there's going to be 700 rows. But when I get to the logo part, that's going to end up taking a little longer. Okay, for row 49, I'm just knitting all the way across, which can go very quickly comparatively to purl. So this portion of the knitting is just very repetitive. So for this side, I am actually just knitting all the way across. And we're going to continue to knit the skeins until we feel like it's proportioned so that we can center the logo snake. So as of right now, we're just doing the plain portion of the blanket before implementing all the other yarns, different color yarns for the snake. So the snake will come in later and there'll be different colors of yarns in there. We'll have a yellow, a green, a couple of greens, and a red for the tongue. So that's going to involve stranded knitting. All right, I'm knitting to the end of row 49 here with my garter knit stitch for this side of the blanket. Knitting to the end. All right, so I'm on row 50. I'm going to knit 10 to have the garter border, continue that. That's a little hard to see. It's just a little hard to see because of the color. So what I'm going to do is knit 10. And then I'm going to purl all the way across. So I knit at 10, move my stitch marker over. And then I'm going to purl all the way across. So I'm going to purl all the way across. So I'm on row 50 now. So I'm trying to knit sufficiently fast. I've been doing about 6 rows per hour, 230 stitches. All right. And now the fun part is just knitting all the way across. Okay, so I'm just going to knit all the way across. All right, so I'm on row 51 and I'm knitting all the way across. And the stitch markers are there, so I will remember on the purl side to start purling. Like, say if you get distracted, the stitch markers are a great way to say, hey, are you on the knit side? If you are not, you have to purl this side. So I'm just going to continue knitting all the way across. I'm going to knit all the way to the end. My garter knit stitch for my stockinette. Okay. Now I'm going to start row 52, and skein number 1 is almost complete. So I'm going to go ahead and knit my 10 stitches and then purl the rest. I'm on row 52. I'm just going to continue knitting and then purling. Knit the 10 stitches, move my stitch marker. So just knitting the 10 to the stitch marker. Move that over, and then I'm going to purl all the way across to the stitch marker. And I'm just going to go ahead and purl all the way across. And now I'm going to move the stitch marker over and just knit the 10 stitches for the border. Just knitting to the end. And now I'm going to knit all the way across for row 53. So now I'm just knitting all the way across. I wish it's so hard to see that. You can see the garter stitch, but the stockinette is there. So now I'm going to knit all the way across row 53. Row 53, I'm knitting all the way to the end. I've already been knitting for an hour. I'm just one row behind what my goal is for an hour. So far I've knitted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for an hour. Okay, I'm moving the stitch marker over. Continue knitting to the end. I still have some yarn, still working the first skein of yarn. Now I'm on row 54. I'm going to knit 10 stitches to the stitch marker. Move the stitch marker over and then continue purling all the way across. I'm just purling to the end, row 54. Now I'm going to knit the last 10 with a garter stitch. One skein of yarn, I still have a little more to go. Row 55, I'm just going to knit all the way across. We're almost done with skein 1. Going to knit all the way across. Row 55, knitting all the way across. Just knitting all the way across. Row 55, just knitting all the way to the end. Garter stitch. Keeping an eye on that skein of yarn. It's almost done. Knitting to the end. I'm on row 56. Okay, this should be enough yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and knit 10 stitches. Move the stitch marker over and then purl all the way across to the end. And I'm just keeping an eye on here because even though you may have quite a bit of left over, it might not fit the 230 stitches that are across here. So you may have to cut it off a little sooner instead of trying to eyeball it and then having to take the stitches out, which becomes a little more time consuming. So this should cover all the way across. And then I might start my second skein. Just purling all the way across to the end to the stitch marker. So I'm almost done the one skein of yarn. I may end up going to the end and then cutting that off. And this is how much, like it's about 56 rows. And this is the length of the 56 rows from one skein of yarn. So it gives you an idea how much yarn you get with such a big blanket, how many rows you get, and it's decent. But we're definitely going to need to add more before we work on the logo. Okay. All right, am I going to make it to the end? Look at that. See, it may look like you have a lot of yarn. You have to keep an eye on it. Hopefully this will make it to the end. I really don't want to take stuff out. Purling all the way across until I get to my stitch marker. Anticipating whether or not you have enough yarn. The stresses. I think I'm going to have enough. And then I can start my second skein of yarn. All right. Purling to the stitch marker. Moving the stitch marker over, and then I'm going to knit the 10. Row 56. All right. I am not going to risk having to pull out stitches. I want to be time efficient when I'm doing custom blankets. So therefore, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to cut that off, and then I'm going to work in the second skein of yarn. I'm going to work in the second skein. So I'm going to cut that off. And now row 57, I'm going to knit all the way across, and we're working on the second skein of yarn. Row 57, just knitting all the way across. I'm going to knot this once. And then when I come back, I'm going to secure it just so I don't have to take it out to make sure it's tight again, because sometimes it gets loose. Okay. All right. I'm on row 57, and I'm just going to go ahead and knit all the way across. Row 57 on my second skein of yarn. I'm just knitting to the end. Okay. I'm on row 58. Okay. I'm going to knit 10 for the garter border. Row 58. I'm going to move my stitch marker over. I'm going to purl all the way across to the second stitch marker. Just purling all the way across to the second stitch marker. Row 58. All right, row 58. I'm just knitting to the end. I'm going to purl to the stitch marker. Now I'm going to knit the last 10. All right, so I finished row 58. I'm going to secure this knot, and then I'm going to work on row 59. I'm on row 59. I'm going to knit all the way across. So far in 2 hours, I've done about 10 rows. I should have at least 12. So let me knit this fast, see if I can get, I should at least have 12. All right, so let's knit all the way across row 59. Let me knit a little faster. All right. Just finishing row 59. I'm pretty much on track for what I can get done within 2 hours. I was still able to knit consistently fast. That's how you want to do it. You want to knit fast, well, with accuracy on top of that though. All right, so I worked on rows 49 to 59. I started my second skein of yarn, and this is the length of the blanket so far. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.5 hours. I started May 6th. So I started May 6th, it's May 14th, and I did 10.5 hours so far on the blanket. I've already added a second skein of yarn, and this is the length of it so far. You have your garter ridge. It's a little hard to see because of it's black. And then I have my stockinette. So this is how much I've done so far. So I will continue to do the plain black until I feel like it's the length I want, because I want to have about 700 rows through the entire blanket, which means then you got to start fitting in the logo as you go. So I will continue knitting this up off stream, and just hit that notification button when I am live, and I will start knitting my temperature blanket today or tomorrow. All right, everyone, happy knitting, and see everyone next time. Bye for now.